Hi, my name is Oswald Situk. Today we'll be discussing the Azure Virtual Network pairing. Now, the Azure Virtual Network is a resource in Azure that offers connectivity between devices. So it allows you to identify devices like, say, your virtual machines in a network and help them communicate within that boundary. It's isolated from every other network. So a network is like it has a boundary that makes sure the devices in that network can communicate with each other. So it separates the devices, identifies them, and allow them to communicate with each other. Now, by default, if you have resources in subnets in a particular virtual network, they should be able to communicate with each other. But if you have resources in a different network entirely, that is not supposed to be possible, except you're going to go through the public internet routing or you run through a VPN. But say you have private connectivity, that's not supposed to be possible. But that's where Azure Virtual Network Pairing comes to the rescue. It is a feature for virtual networks that allows you to seamlessly connect two or more virtual networks in Azure and make sure that they appear as one in terms of connectivity, like they could communicate as if they were in one single network. So VNet pairing, that's the same thing as Azure Virtual Network Pairing, offers private network connectivity between separate isolated networks as though they were one unified network. Now, what would be the benefit of this? The benefit is that you have a low latency, high bandwidth connectivity, and there is no need for public IP addressing. So let's see what this is. So let's say you have a virtual network in East US region, and this virtual network has two subnets, subnet 1 and subnet 2, and each of the subnets has a virtual machine inside, and to connect to them you have a bastion host service, and it has an energy to handle the access. Now these two virtual machines, because they are in the same single network, they should be able to communicate regardless of being in separate subnets. They should be able to communicate. By default, the rules allow them to communicate that way. Well, let's say we have another virtual network in the same East US region, and this has just one subnet and a VM3. That VM3 should not be able to communicate with VM1 or VM2 via the private access. It's not possible because they are isolated and segmented. They have no link between each other. And likewise, the case of, say, you have a resource, a virtual network resource in the Australia East, and then you have a virtual machine there also. They shouldn't be able to communicate. They shouldn't be able to communicate except you're going through the public IP addressing, routing, and just make sure that you have access over the internet. But for you to have private, low latency, high bandwidth connectivity, you need to have pairing across these regions. So what you're able to see here is separated resources, virtual networks. Now, if you were to connect virtual network 1 and virtual network 2 via pairing, it means that they will be able to communicate and share resources. That means that VM1 will be able to communicate with VM2, and VM2 will be able to communicate to VM3, and the other way around, and it's going to be beautiful, seamless. And that also means that VM3 will be able to have access to the bastion in the virtual network 1. So that bastion service will be able to cover VM3, which is in a different virtual network. The same thing goes for the Australia East. If we have connectivity via pairing, it means that VM4 will be able to communicate with VM2 and VM1, and likewise. This connectivity also ensures that VM4 can also share access with the bastion service and every other service that's available. It's as if they are one single network. This connectivity that we have within virtual networks in the same region is what we call local VNet pairing, local virtual network pairing. And the one that goes across regions is what we call global virtual network pairing. These are the two types of virtual network pairings that we have. Now, we see that VNet 1 has connectivity with VNet 2, and VNet 1 has connectivity with VNet 3. But that does not mean that VNet 2 has connectivity with VNet 3. So if we were to try and find connectivity from VNet 3 to VNet 2, the VMs in VM2, the VM3 and VM4 will not be able to communicate because this connectivity is non-transitive. What that means is, because VNet 1 is connected to each of them does not mean that they can communicate with each other. There is no pairing. If you want that to happen, you have to explicitly create a pairing connection. Or if you're in the case where you have something like an NVA, that's a network virtual appliance, say in VNet 1, and that network virtual appliance would have a route that helps you send traffic from VNet, the VM3 to VM4, and it's going to help you route that traffic through to VNet 3, that's the VM4 itself. So that's the only way that can happen. But that's just goes to say again that virtual network pairings are non-transitive. You cannot just go through because you're connected to a mutual virtual network. It doesn't mean you guys can communicate with each other except you have something set up. The advantages of virtual network pairing goes beyond just high bandwidth connectivity and low latency and no public IP addressing, because as you can see now, we can connect across regions. Also, we can connect across subscriptions in Azure, and we can connect across tenants using the resource ID of the particular virtual network in each respective tenant. Another thing you should take note is that you cannot pair networks that have overlapping IP addresses. So each of the virtual networks that you want to pair should have unique, isolated, segmented IP address ranges. So you cannot have the same IP address range or overlapping IP address range in your paired network. It's going to cause conflict and it wouldn't work. So that's just it. And you should know that when you initiate a pairing across networks, the traffic between these virtual networks and the VMs in them or the resources in them, it goes across a Microsoft network backbone infrastructure. So it doesn't go across the internet. It works in-house. So that said, we will go into the portal and we'll see how this works. So here we are in the Azure portal, and for this demonstration, I have the resources pre-configured. All the resources we would need are pre-configured apart from the pairing itself. So if you want to learn how to create virtual machines, I have a video that walks you through and explains how this works and the entire thing for virtual machines. And also, if you want to learn how to configure Bastion service or create a virtual network and subnets, I have a link in the description of this video. You can go there, and you can also find a pop-up at the top side here for one of those videos for you to just go ahead and watch. And I would say, if you like this video, give it a like, subscribe, hit the bell button so you can be notified when we have new videos come your way. That said, let's go into this. So for this purpose, I have created a resource group, and we have the resources inside. So here you'll be able to see all the resources we're using for this demo. We have our VM1, we have our VM2, we have VM3, and we have, if you come here, we have our virtual networks 1, virtual networks 2, and 3 in here. And each of these resources, the disk and the NICs, the network interface cards, the network security groups, are just they are complementary resources that help the virtual machine work properly. So I'm going to come here and just come to my virtual networks. So we'll show you what we have. So in the virtual networks, you can see here we have VNet 1, we have VNet 2, and we have VNet 3. So VNet 1 and 2 are in East US as per our diagram we saw earlier. So we have East US for both of them, and VNet 3 is in Australia East. So if I were to come into VNet 1, you will be able to see that VNet 1 is in East US. This is the address range. So VNet 1 uses the class A IP address range as 10.49.0.0/24, and it's a smaller network so that I can manage this. So now if I come here to subnet, you will be able to see that we have 3 subnets available. We have subnet 1, we have subnet 2, we have Azure Bastion subnet. So for you to use Azure Bastion, you need to deploy a unique, specific subnet for that service in this very network. So I have Azure Bastion subnet. So when you create a subnet in Azure, Azure holds 5 IP addresses in the range. The first 4 and the last one. The first one is the network ID. Then the second one is the gateway IP. The third and the fourth will be for DNS configurations, and the last one is the broadcast ID. So those ones are reserved. So if out of 64/26 will give us 64 IPs. Out of 64, we're supposed to have 59 available IPs, but 1 has been taken, so now we are left with 58, and that's used for VM1, and the other one too is taken and is used for VM2. Just want you to take note. So if I come to connected devices here, you will be able to see the devices that we have connected. We have our Bastion connected to this network, because if you see the Bastion service also, it should have, I think it should, no, not Bastion service, subnets. I'm meant to go to subnets. So you see the subnets here. So this one has the same thing. So you see, I have 55 here, and that's because the Bastion service I created here, I asked for 4 instances of the Bastion so that we can be able to use and connect to each of these VMs if we need to. So that's why it's 55 here. So if I come here to connected devices, you can see Bastion is there, and you see VM2 733. Just use the first number. The first number is what indicates what VM I'm talking about. So this is VM1, this is VM2. The IP address for VM1 is 10.49.0.4, and then the IP address for VM2 is 10.49.0.68. So you take note of this. We would use this for our tests to confirm where how our peering works. So that said, I'm going to move over back here, and we're going to check out VNet2. So if I come to VNet2, it is in EastUS also, as you can see, and here you can confirm it's in EastUS, and this is the address space. So this is a class B IP address, private IP address. This is 172.16.49.0/24. And if we come to the subnets here, as per our diagram earlier, our illustration, we have just one subnet, that's subnet 3, and this is the IP address range that we use for this, and we have 58 IPs. One is taken for the virtual machine. So just to confirm, we have one here. And if you note, none of these virtual machines has a public IP address. For the VNet one, we'll be connecting to them using the Bastion service, so we do not need to have a public IP address attached to our NIC. It's just the private IP addresses. So if I come to the overview, you will be able to confirm here if we had I'm sorry, that's not where I was supposed to go. Let me come. I'm going to show you on the virtual machines themselves. Let me just look at the VNet 3 and just confirm to you certain things, that they have completely different IP address ranges, so they will not overlap. That's why I use different classes. So this is class C, 192.168.49.0/24. And if I come to the subnets right here, you will be able to see that we have subnet 4, single subnet, and 58 also. It means we have one connected device right here. So this is coming up now. So we see VM4. So we have this IP address for that. So if I come here and say virtual machines, you will be able to see the virtual machine that I have here. So we have VM1, VM2, VM3, VM4. I'll just come to VM3 just to show you that it doesn't have any public IP address. So if I come here, you would see primary NIC public IP. There's no public IP attached to that. So if I come to VM1, you'll also see the same thing, that we do not have any public IP attached. Likewise for VM4, we do not have any public IP attached to this. Now I'm going to go to my network watcher. This is a service that helps you monitor, log, and troubleshoot issues that has to do with network devices. So once you create resources in each region, it's going to just come up with instances for those regions to check what's happening on your behalf. So I'm going to check the topology just to show you what we have already, as it's close to our diagram. So right now we have East US and we have Australia East. There's another resource here, but not for this demonstration. So if I want to see more that's inside East US, I can click on East US, and then you get to see the resources that we have here. You have VNet 1, VNet 1 and VNet 2. If you want to see the details, if I click on VNet 1, you would see that we have more details. So we have our Azure Bastion subnet, subnet 2, subnet 1. If I go into subnet 1, you would see we have our virtual machine right there. If I zoom in a little bit, if I come to subnet 2, you see we have our resource also there. So our VM2 is there. It's ticked because it's running. This is our NIC, and this is our IP configuration itself that holds our IP addresses. And this is the NSG, network security group, that handles traffic that comes here. So this is what it is. This is what we have here. So that said, I'm going to just come back here and show you subnet 2 as well. So this is going to show you what is in subnet 2, and subnet 2 has not subnet 2, VNet 2, sorry. VNet 2 is in East US also. So VNet 2 has its own subnet, which is subnet 3, and that has just one virtual machine inside. If I come back to the geo map here, I'll see Australia East, and in Australia East, we will be able to see that we have VNet 3. And if I open up this, we'll see just one subnet in there, which is subnet 4. And we have subnet 4, SNet 4, and then if I expand, you'll see what we have inside. We have our virtual machine, the NIC, the energy that controls traffic, and the perimeter, and we have the IP configuration. So that's everything that we have. So now we have these resources. I'm going to try to connect to VM1 and connect to VM2. So I'm going to come to Azure Bastion, or I could come to Bastion, or I could go to the VNet itself. Either of them will work. So let me just come to the virtual networks we have here, and I will just come to VNet 1. And here in VNet 1, I will come to Bastion, way to connect. Like I said earlier, if you want to learn more about Bastion, I have an entire video dedicated just to Bastion. So you can go ahead and check that out. So this is the Bastion service we have. Bastion VNet 1 is the name of that Bastion service. And here we want to connect to our VM1. You can choose, because both VM1 and VM2 are in the same network, so I can connect to either of them from here. So VM1 is what I want to connect to next via the VM password. I'll just give it the username. The username is VM1, and then I'm going to just put in the password. So that's in, and I want it to definitely open in another tab. I would like to maintain this one, so I'll just keep that checked and click on connect. So once I hit connect, this will open up the VM. We are in VM1, so I'm going to come back here and connect to VM2. I'm going to switch this to VM2, and then the username for VM2 is VM2, and then I'm going to input my password. And then the same thing, I'll click on connect. So we're connecting to VM2 right now. VM1 is already connected, as you can see. We're connected to VM1 right here, and we have VM2 right here. So that's it. If I come to local server, you can see the name right here, VM1, and the same thing goes for the server manager is about to come up. So you can see that. Now, one of the ways to check that there's connectivity between these devices is if we try to ping the devices. I'm going to try to ping VM1 from VM2 and ping VM2 from VM1. That would also show us. And one more thing we could do to confirm connectivity is to try to connect to one of the VMs via remote desktop. Since you're in the same network, you should be able to do that via the private IP address of each of them. So we know that the VM1 has 10.49.0.4 and VM2 has 10.49.0.68. So those are the IP addresses. So if I want to ping them, I'll just come to, this is VM2, so I'll just right click on this and go to my PowerShell. And just to confirm the IP addresses, I'll just say ipconfig. This will confirm what I said, 10.49.0.68. And if I come to VM1 and right click on this and click on PowerShell here and find my IP configuration, I'll find the same thing. So ipconfig. So we can see that this is 10.49.0.4. So that is what it is. So if I want to ping the other one, I try to, let me see, I'm trying to, oh, sorry, I want to ping. So I'll say ping 10.49.0 and 68. So from here, if I try to ping this, I'm going to put it on continuous ping with the -T. If I put this up now, although they have connectivity, this might not be a true test because there is a firewall rule that keeps this from happening, a private profile rule that keeps this from happening. And I'm going to turn that off for this just to show you, but it is not best practice at all for you to do that, especially in a production environment. It's just for testing purposes. The reason why I'm going to be doing that now, it will just be for testing purposes, but it's trying to ping and it's not able to because there is firewall rule that's blocking this. So I'll come back to VM2 and I'm going to turn that off here. So I'll just use set net firewall profile. Okay, and then the profile I want to change is, I want to change the private, profile. So private and enabled false. So if I do this, this will turn off the firewall for the private profile. So if I hit this now, it should go through. Okay, so if you want to confirm what I did, if it worked, we can just do this. I'll get the net firewall profile just for us to see. So I have this, and I want to just see. Let me send this through a pipeline, and let's have the name and enable. Yes. Okay. Okay, so I have this here, and yes, so this will just show us what the status is. So you see, I've turned it off. It's false. It worked. So we have this turned off. It's turned off already. I'll try to see if I can copy this. Let me see. Let's see if I can copy this out. So now if I come back here, since it's turned off, you see the connectivity gone through. Let me just cancel this. So I've stopped that. If I try it again, now it's going to be, okay, I'm going to move the -T. So we have just direct ping. So if I hit the ping now, you see there's a reply. There's no more timeout. It just works. So previously we had timeout because of the firewall rule. So I'm going to try and ping this one here just to show you what I mean. Ping 10.49.0.4. So if I ping this and also continuous ping on the VM1, we also have firewall rule that's making this not happen. So you see, this is going to take a while. It's not going to happen. It's going to keep timing out. So because of that rule, and I'm saying it again, this is just for testing purposes. You don't do this in the production environment. You don't do this at all. So if I want to do this, I could use the same code I used earlier. So this code would be able to make sure that happens. And if I hit enter now, okay, I think the get, oh, beautiful. So I'm going to do this. Let me remove this part. Okay, so I'm going to just do this now. And the same thing, it happened. So if I paste this other row now, I don't know why it's just going up, going down. Let me just make this full screen temporarily. So if I hit enter now, so you see it confirms that I've turned that off. If I come back here, you see it's now connecting because that has been sorted. So I've canceled that. So you see there's connectivity between these guys. And if I come back here, I'm just going to show you another way you could go ahead to turn off that if you wanted to. So you could just come here and do firewall. Okay, so Windows Defender firewall, and this will take you to, this is the GUI way to do it. So if you come down to turn Windows Defender firewall on and off, if I click on this, you see this private network settings public. So if for private, I turned it off here. So I'm just going to come here, hit here, and turn it on again. So it's back on. It's back on now. And if I want to do the same thing here, say in this other one, I can use the script to turn it back on. Let me make this full screen. So let's do this. So I'll put it back at true. So if I do this now, it will turn it back on again. So if I try to check get now, you see everything's back to true. So the firewall has been turned back on. So that's it. So if I want to connect to, I want to RDP into one of these virtual machines. You know, right now we're connected to each of these virtual machines via the Bastion service. 2 instances are already used, and we're RDPing into this. Remember, the Bastion service allowed us to RDP into the virtual machine. So if I come here now and say, I'll close this off. This is VM1. I want to connect to VM2 via the RDP service. I'll just come here and say RDP. This will bring up my remote desktop connection. Beautiful. And I'll click on this. And you see, I already have 10.49.0.68 here. That's the IP address. So I'll hit on connect. Once I do that, it's going to ask me to log in. That's it. It's asking me to log in. My credentials did not work, so I have to put in my credentials. Now I have VM2 here just for me to put the password. So I'm going to sign in. So you see, I am now connected to VM2 using the private IP address. I'm connected to VM2 using the private IP address. So it's in. So if you see the PowerShell, the thing I was doing before, the history is still there. It just continue from there. Because I'm connected here, this service will time out. So I have to reconnect. If I want to reconnect here now, this other one is going to time out now. So it shows you that I'm connected to this virtual machine. By default, because they are in the same network, although in different subnets, they are in the same network and there's connectivity. So if I come here now and reconnect, so you see, this one has come back here. If I come here, this session is over. So you can see that we have connectivity. So I'm going to come here now and just close this. And if I try to ping the other devices, because they're not in the same network, that would not work. That's not possible. I will just ping and ping and ping. But I said they don't have any public IP addresses attached to them, so I cannot reach them and I connect to them right now. But I can go to I can come here and connect to each of them. So I can just come to the VM itself. On Azure, you are able to run some scripts via the run command on the virtual machine resource. So I can come here to PowerShell script, and currently there is firewall, remember? So I don't know if I can do this. Okay, I'll just have to type it out again. So let's just do set net firewall, yes. And net firewall. Okay. To profile and private, that's what I want to change. And enabled, and then this would be false. So I'm going to add a new one now, get net profile, okay, so that you just get to see that we've done it. And this is format table, and we have just a name and enabled. So we have this. So good. Now, so I'm going to just run this script. Might take a little longer than it should on the VM itself, but it's going to come up. So I want to just turn this off now, and then we'll go back to VM1 and try to ping. So I'm going to, while this is happening, I'll come here to VM1 and just ping this virtual machine. The IP address is, let me say, ping. This is VM3, so VM3 is on the class B IP address, so that's ping 172.16.49.4. that is the IP address there. We'll confirm it's supposed to be 16.16. Okay, so okay, continuous ping. So 172.16.49.4. So we'll just confirm that here. So this is done. It's turned off. So it shouldn't be a problem trying to connect to it if that's the case. But I'll just come here now, you see, just to confirm the IP address, 172.16.49.4. 172.16.49.4. So I will leave this to continually time out so you get to see, and it will just keep timing out because that's not possible because we are not in the same virtual network. Although they're in the same region, it doesn't work. So we just come here and let's go back home and connect to our VNet 1. Oh, before I do that, I want to go back and just show you something. So if I come here to VM3 right now, which is what we're trying to connect to, if I come to Bastion service on the VM3, you would see that it will tell me to create a Bastion service because I do not have one to use. So let's see what happens now. So I have to deploy Bastion. I want you to note that. But after connecting the virtual networks together, that's VNet 1 to VNet 2, I will be able to use the Bastion service that was created for VNet 1. That's why I brought you back here. So let's go back here and click on VNet 1. And yes, we can come down to pairings. And pairings, we don't have any pairing right now. So just to create one, we'll add. Here in pairing, we'll just give it a name so that we can identify. Imagine we have so many pairings happening, we have to identify which is which. So I'll just call this, I'll just say this is VNet 1 to VNet 2. Yes, and this is classic. This is resource manager. The resource manager works with the Azure Resource Manager. So the ARM templates, the ARM system is what helps this happen. This is the legacy features. And here we have subscription, and we have to choose our virtual network. Now, if we have the virtual network or the resource the virtual network we're trying to connect to in the same tenant, this is V VNet. In the same tenant, but different subscriptions. You can choose from the list of subscriptions where you want to connect to, and then you'll be able to connect to what you want to connect to. In this case, I want VNet 2. But if it's in a different tenant entirely, you can go copy the resource ID of the virtual network and just click on I know my resource ID and paste it right here. Since it's unique across Azure, you'll be able to connect. So I said earlier that one of the benefits of VNet pairing is that it could happen across regions, subscriptions, and tenants. Although you should note that if you have different regions spanned out so far from each other, it will connect, but you have an initial latency, like definitely because of the distance. It will not be so significant, but there will be. So just know that. But it's low latency doesn't mean that there isn't latency anyways. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to come here to VNet 2. And then we have allow VNet 2 to access VNet 1. That's what we want to make sure it happens. Allow VNet 2 to receive forwarded traffic. Now, in the case of, say, you're trying to connect to, say you have VNet 1 and VNet 2, and VNet 2 has an NVA. It has a network virtual appliance, so maybe like a router or a firewall, or traffic is supposed to pass from there. It will forward the traffic through to this particular one. This is what I was saying earlier. In case you want to connect to another device, you could use you could forward the traffic and allow it to allow forwarded traffic. And that's a case where maybe you're having a hub and spoke topology that will really serve you here, but I don't need this. And we have allow gateway and route server, and we see enable VNet to use. So either way, it's like this has to do with you allowing gateway service as VPN or the express route. Say you have an on-premises environment that is linked to one of the VNet you're trying to connect to, so in this case VNet 2, and you want to be able to collect traffic that's coming from the on-premises environment. From there it goes to the VNet 2, and from VNet 2 is forwarded to you. You could turn this on, and then if this VNet 1 had an express route service connection or VPN connection, it could also allow it to share with another resource that it is connecting to. So that's what these options are for, but I won't be, for the purpose of this demonstration, we're just going to stick with what we have here. And for the name, I'm going to just have it in the reverse. I'll just have VNet 2 to VNet 1. So that's what I want to connect. I'll leave everything else as is. I've already explained this, and click on add. Okay, so that's done. It's happening right now. We see that remote sync is required, initiated. The pairing state can be initiated, can be connected, it can be updating, can be failed, like just depending on the state of things. So right now it's initiated, and after initiating, it will now show you connected. So in case you see different states here, if it's failed, you see failed. Maybe there's some changes you've done to your virtual network that broke the connection between them. But right now, if I refresh this, it will show you connected because it's done. So what that means is that we have a direct connection, seamless connectivity between these two networks, VNet 1 and VNet 2, and they can share resources. That's what has happened here. And if you do it from one virtual network, it connects to the second one. You don't need to struggle to make it like go back to the other one to do the same thing. So if I come to VNet 2, if I just click here and go to VNet 2 directly, and I come down to pairings, you would see that it's already done here. On VNet 2, there's a connection. So if I come back to VNet 1 now, I want to add one more pairing, and this pairing is going to be to the Australia East Virtual Network. That's VNet 3. So I am going to come here and go to pairings and click on add pairing. Then this will be VNet 1 to VNet 3. So I'm going to just copy all of this. So I'll use it again. So we have the subnets, the subscription. VNet is VNet 3. I'll just come down here and replace it. Just change a few things around. Okay, so we're good here. I'll just click on add. So this will give us connectivity across these virtual networks. So I said earlier that we have a bastion service in VNet 1 that allowed me to connect to my VMs, my VM1 and my VM2s, because I have 4 instances available. So now that I've added these 2 virtual networks via pairing, they should be able to use the other 2 instances to connect to those VMs. Remember, they have no public IP. So now if I refresh this now, you see the connection has been done. So I have VNet pairing on both networks. Then I'm going to just come here and show you something. previously, when we looked at our topology, we were able to see the regions separated across the map there, the geomap. But now you see we have a connection. So now you see here we have Australia East and East US. There's a direct connection. That's the pairing network. East US now, you would see that we have connectivity. It shows you this is the local pairing, this is the global pairing between VNet 1 and VNet 3 inside here. This is direct pairing between them. So that's just it. I want you to see that. So if I come back here to VM1, I can try to connect to this service. I would say, let me just say RDP again. So remote desktop connection, click on this, and this time around I want to connect to 192, that's the VM4, 192.168.49.4. So now that's it. I'm going to click on connect. It's asking me, for it to even ask me this, the IP address is completely different. For it to ask me this, it means there's connectivity between us. So I can say, okay, VM4, and I'll come here and put this password. So now we have this here, remember me, and I'll click on OK. Let's see this. So it's yes. So I'm connecting to this for the first time. So this is going to just come up. This is our VM4 coming up, 192.168.49.4. So VM4 is coming up. If I come back here, for us to confirm that, I could just come home here to home and then VM4. So you can see 192.168.49. So I'm connected to this VM at this moment via the RDP in this other VM. So because we have connectivity, that works. So if I come here to, remember I said it doesn't have Bastion attached to it. Also VM3 doesn't have Bastion. But now because there's connectivity, we can use the same Bastion that was made for VNet 1. That can happen. If I try to connect this, it's going to disconnect this other one. So I'll leave it as it is. Instead, I'll go for VM3 instead. I'll come to VM3. And VM3 is what we checked earlier, and it didn't have access to Bastion. You're asking us to deploy. But now if I click on Bastion service here, we will be able to see and have access to Bastion 1 because of the pairing. So I can come here and say, okay, I want to connect to you, and I want to, let's say your VM3, yes, and then give you a password. So that should automatically connect us to VM3. And that's happening because we have 4 instances, and this Bastion we're using is a standard Bastion. 4 instances were provisioned so that I could use for this demonstration for you. So if I had to, it means I would have to disconnect one session for me to have this other session. So I have 3. I have 1 more slot available for me to do the last one if I wanted to. So we have this VM here. I want to just do something here just to prove that we are let me make this full screen in here just to prove that we are in the VM itself. I'm going to open something, maybe Microsoft Edge. Confirm and continue. Oh, wow, this is okay. Let me just leave it as it is now, just as it is. Then I'm going to come back here and let's connect to VM4. So I'll come to VM4 now, and in VM4 I'll click on Bastion service as well, and then I'm going to come down to put in my password via RDP, guys, port 3389. So I'll just come here and just type VM4. So if I connect to this, it's going to disconnect the other one that we have that was running on VM1. So this session is still here. So if I do this now, this is this is it. So the session has been disconnected because we have one running somewhere else. So that is here. So if I come, you see it continues from where we stopped. So this is just to show you that connectivity occurs because we have pairing, and the traffic between these virtual networks and VMs is moving across the Azure backbone, not the internet. And it gives you private network connectivity across these virtual machines. And although they are isolated, now they are put together as one big family. And that said, I want to also mention that for if you had a single network and you were trying to or resource most resources in Azure, Azure doesn't charge you for data ingress, but it charges you for data egress. But when it comes to the case of VNet pairing, the paired networks, there is Azure charges you for data ingress and egress. Both of them, you're charged for this. So if I'm sending something from VM1 to VM2, maybe 1 GB because it's charged per gigabyte. If I'm sending something across, I will be charged on both ends. Charged for sending as egress and charged for receiving ingress at the same time. So that's what happens in when you have a paired network. You should take note of that. Although it's not so significant depending on the number of gigabytes, because it's like let's figure that out. Let's not just talk about it. VNet pairing. VNet pairing. Let me see. Okay, I think this document should have it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, pricing. So a nominal fee is charged for ingress and egress traffic that uses a virtual network pairing connection. So that's just what I was trying to say to you. So if you want to see more virtual network pricing, go there and find out more about that. So VNet pairing, global VNet pairing, this is the cost. Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3 just tells you the detail you want to know. Inbound data traffic, outbound data traffic. You see, this is for same in the same region. This is how much is being charged. In a different region, entirely as global VNet pairing, this is the cost for this. So you get to see that. Thank you very much for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you in the next video.